Hello and welcome. Pope Benedict XVI is making his first visit to the Middle East at a time when many Christians are leaving that region permanently. Studies report that the Christian population of the Arab world is dwindling to historically low levels. Today, the Pope began his visit to Israel and the Palestinian territories with a specific message for the followers who still live in the birthplace of Christianity.
To the Christian communities in the Holy Land, I say, by your faithful witness to him who preached forgiveness and reconciliation, by your commitment to uphold the sacredness of every human life, you can make a particular contribution to ending the hostilities that for so long have afflicted this land. I pray that your continuing presence in Israel and the Palestinian territories will bear much fruit in promoting peace and mutual respect among all the peoples who live in the lands of the Bible.
So today we ask, why are the Christian communities of the Middle East slowly but surely leaving? And what social and political effects will this have on the region? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. Log on to livestation.com/AJE, enter the chat room and then take part. And of course, we also welcome your phone calls on the show. Joining me today are Bernard Sabella, a Christian member of the Palestinian Legislative Council representing Jerusalem and a former professor of sociology at Bethlehem University. He joins us from Dayton, Ohio. Charles Sennett is in Boston. He is the executive editor of globalpost.com, an international news agency. He was a long-time foreign correspondent for the Boston Globe and the Globe's Middle East bureau chief based in Jerusalem from 1997 to 2001. He is the author of The Body and the Blood, The Middle East's Vanishing Christians and the Possibility for Peace. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Bernard Sabella, let me start
hello,
with
it's my pleasure to be with you.
You're welcome. Bernard Sabella, I want to start with you. The figures we have show that the number of Christians in places like the West Bank is dropping. The figure we have in 1947, the Christian population of what was then Greater Palestine was 7.3% of the population. Now the Christian population of the West Bank and Israel is put at 2%. That's a significant drop. Why do you believe that Christians especially have left in such large numbers?
Well, first of all, the political situation continues to impact practically every aspect of life for Palestinians, whether they are Christians or Muslims. With the Christians being an educated community, being well-spoken in different languages, it becomes easier to go to where the opportunities call them. And when politics really inhibits economic development and freedom of movement, as is happening in the occupied West Bank and Gaza Strip in the Palestinian territories, then it becomes a dead end for many of the young people who would seek their fortunes somewhere else.
Charles Sennett.
But let me just give you can I give you just specific figures very quickly? In 1947, prior to the establishment of Israel, there were 145,000 Christian Palestinians. Today, in both Israel and the occupied territories, you have 160,000, whereas if things were normal, you would have expected to have a Christian Palestinian population of over 400,000, which means that 250,000 Palestinian Christians are today found somewhere else.
Okay, let's go to Charles Sennett. Charles Sennett, I just want to pick up on something that Bernard Sabella was saying there, and that is the fact that many of the Christians who have left this particular region are very highly educated and come from the middle and upper classes. So what is the loss to the region when people from this group leave?
I think the loss is extraordinary, as Dr. Sabella has documented in his excellent research on the topic. The loss is emotional, certainly, to think that Christianity is dying in the land where the faith began. But I think the loss is even very practical in the sense that the Middle East has always been about the three Abrahamic faiths and about those faiths coming together to try to find an understanding. And when we see the Christian presence diminishing, I think we lose an important indigenous connection to the West. So many Christian Arab thinkers have been so important in terms of explaining the Middle East to the West. The list is very long, from Edward Said going back to some of the great thinkers of the Arab awakening. Even the founder of the Ba'ath Party, for good or for bad on that one, but certainly thinkers of the Middle East have quite often come out of the Christian faith, and I think have played a very important role in explaining that. And when we lose that connection, when we lose that indigenous Christian Arab population, I think it makes it harder for the societies to explain to the West the complexity of the problems they face, and I think we lose a key player in the pursuit of peace. And that hurts everyone in the region, anyone who cares about peace in the region.
Dr. Sabella, you mentioned earlier that some of the reasons people are leaving is because of the insecurity in the area and for economic reasons as well. I was looking at something that was written in the National Review online here. It was written by Nina Shea, and she says the lands that were once the cradle of Christianity have turned distinctively inhospitable to the faith. Fiercely intolerant variants of Islam are taking hold in the region. So that would suggest that there is some form of persecution here. Do you believe that to be the case?
No. I don't believe that to be the case. In fact, studies and surveys have indicated that there is no problem there. A couple of years back, one high-ranking Catholic cleric in the Holy Land asked me about the relationships in the Bethlehem area. And so I was still then teaching at Bethlehem University, and I did a short survey, a quick survey, that included both Muslims and Christians. And amazingly, the overwhelming majority of both groups have said that relations among Christians and Muslims in Bethlehem and the Palestinian territories are in fact a model to be followed. Some people are in a sense biased because they want to pick on certain sensitivities that exist anyway, anyhow, anywhere, and to promote these sensitivities as being the major component of relationships between Christians and Muslims. I have to say that without really Christians and Muslims working together in not only in Palestinian society, but in fact in the different Arab societies, we could not have created the vision of a society that we all want to see in the Arab world. Unfortunately, there are problems in Iraq, elsewhere, that make that kind of a vision of mutual understanding and living together and working together quite impossible for a certain time. But we are always hopeful that we will go back to the good old traditions in some of those countries like Iraq to pull ourselves together and to go onward.
And Charles, do you believe that is the case as well, that the reason for the departure of a large number of Christians is because of political instability, because of economic conditions, rather than any sense of persecution in these areas?
I do. I think this is a very nuanced and complex issue, and an ancient one, by the way. You know, the history of Christianity is really about the history of movement and immigration and migration from the Holy Land, where the Christian faith is born, to the West, where Christendom rises as a political power. So I think this sense of movement of Christianity to the West is one that is really the history of Christianity. In the modern context, I agree for the most part with Dr. Sabella in the sense that there are too many who are too quick to say that this persecution is the only reason that Christians are leaving. Clearly it's not. Clearly it is the economic and political forces. And that said, those forces come from both the Israeli side in the exertion of power, and they also, I think, come from a rising fundamentalism in the political sphere on the Muslim side as well.
Well, that's something I want to ask you about.
There's a culture, just to complete the one thought, I think there's a culture of intolerance in the Middle East that increasingly makes anyone who is a minority feel more and more alienated, and perhaps leaning toward the immigration pipelines that are already established for them to move to the West. And it's a complex, nuanced truth that's been true for a very long time.
Okay, we have to take a break right now. We'll have more on our discussion on the Christian communities of the Middle East in a moment. As we pause, let me remind you that you can join the conversation with your questions and comments by logging on to livestation.com and entering the chat room. You can see the debate taking place there right now. We'll be right back.
Dum